Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. My name is Jeff Jones. It's my pleasure to serve as Vice Provost for Regional Campuses at the University of Central Florida, and welcome to all of you here this morning. We appreciate you fighting the morning traffic and all the other things that it took to get here, but I'm looking forward to a great day, and you can see that we have fantastic attendance. I'm sure the number is right around 150. I'm not sure where we went from there, but that's a great turnout, and we appreciate that very much. Today marks a very auspicious anniversary date. As most of you know, on November of last year, we celebrated our 10th anniversary of the formation of the Central Florida Higher Education Consortium. And today marks the 10-year anniversary of our announcement of Direct Connect to UCF. Thank you. Yes, that's what I was going to suggest. For many in this room, you remember those days, and I appreciate very much the work that went into this. So one of the things I want to do right now is ask, and I know some of you just sat down, but we can't have too much up and down this early in the morning. I know that we want to get everybody awakened here. So tell me, by standing up, how many folks in this room were there and participated in one way or another on the formation of Direct Connect to UCF 10 years ago today? Hey, that's great, isn't it? So you will forever be known as the pioneers of Direct Connect to UCF. Well, I can tell you in my almost 3 years here, I frequently say I have a pride of affiliation rather than authorship, but I can tell you that it's fantastic to be associated with Direct Connect to UCF, which of course has gained more and more national attention through the years. It's a rare month, if not week, that goes by that one of us aren't contacted to find out more details about Direct Connect. People around the country seem very enamored by the success of this program. And one of the things that marks success is sustainability, I think. The ability to get in there and do things over the long haul. I'm sure you, like me, have been involved in lots of initiatives through the years that are well-intended. We get 3 or 4 years into those things. Maybe the grant goes away. Maybe there are changes in the environment, whatever. It's hard to sustain programs for a long period of time. But Direct Connect to UCF, 10 years old, is getting bigger and I think better each year. And we're going to talk a little bit today about some of the things that we can look forward to going forward. We very intentionally discussed in our planning sessions that we do not want today to be UCF-centric. We want it to be about the partnership. But we're also going to show you some of the things that we've learned through our Foundations of Excellence study that we completed this last year and are beginning to implement this year. We're going to hear from some students today about their impressions having transferred to UCF, what went well, what maybe we could improve upon, and finally we're going to talk about how we as a partnership can help smooth this pathway for students going forward. And that's really what we're here to talk about, and that's a very important work, as I'm sure all of you agree. But one of the things that was very interesting to me is just yesterday a colleague handed me a draft by the Student Affairs Planning Group for Direct Connect to UCF, which was updated on 3/22/06. Very interesting, isn't it? Slightly over 10 years old. So here are the things that the system design principles that were laid out 10 years ago. And I'll let you decide whether or not we're still carrying through on all of these things 10 years later. Number one, access. Students can indicate as early as possible to the community college, verbiage changes, their intent to complete a bachelor's degree at UCF. Number two, choice. Students have increased choices of bachelor degree programs at regional community colleges. True for a variety of reasons, I think. 3, flexibility. Students can benefit from the consortium agreement at any time prior to or after graduation from community college. 4, progression and completion. Students develop educational plans that encourage timely degree program completion and avoid excess hours. 5, transition. Students transition from community college to university is transparent to them. 6, academic support. Students receive integrated and comprehensive academic and student support services. Number 7, guarantee. The guarantee of admission to UCF is clear, operational, and trackable so that participation and progress is easily documented and verified. So what do you think, folks? Are we still on track with these goals that we laid out over 10 years ago? I think so. But today we're also going to be talking about our ongoing efforts to improve in each one of these areas. And we know that improvement is still not only possible but desirable and necessary to ensure that our students continue to be more and more successful once they matriculate to UCF. So I appreciate your attendance today. We're certainly going to look forward to that discussion. Get down in the weeds a little bit, as they say, perhaps, to try to brainstorm some things that we can do to try to improve this pathway. And I'm looking forward to our day together. So thank you very much for that. I want to introduce to you this morning, if she probably needs no introduction, she was one of the pioneers that stood up, by the way, Dr. Joyce Romano, Vice President for Student Affairs at Valencia College. And I think Joyce might also take the opportunity to talk a little bit about her new role going forward at Valencia College. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Joyce Romano.
Thanks, Jeff. That's a great start. And we did not collaborate at all on our remarks, but you'll see how they definitely overlap. So we definitely got the vibe here going. We're simpatico. I want to try to get my PowerPoint up, and let's see, if I go here, am I going to find it? I don't see it on the desktop. Oh, there he is. Oh, there he is. Good. Boy, magic. It happens. All right, great. So I tried, this probably isn't the right UCF gold color. I just grabbed a PowerPoint. But, you know, I'm trying. Don't tell your marketing people. I'm sure they'd be upset that it's not the right hue of gold. So anyway. So, so this is what we called ourselves when we started. And this was funny, actually, because we were preparing for this public announcement that happened on April 6, 2006. And we said, okay, well, that's going to be hard to put on a poster. So what do we need to do? So there was a deliberate marketing team led by Dr. Angie Peterson, and that's how we came up to Direct Connect to UCF. We actually considered, I think there were 3 or 4 choices. Somewhere back in my files, because I'm an absolute pack rat, I'm sure I have what the other 3 choices were. It would be fun to actually look them up, but definitely I think we picked a good one. And yeah, so I was also thinking of those principles, and I'm so glad that Jeff found the paper that actually described them, but this was definitely a foundation. We started with the idea of what do we want the students to experience, and so really always that fidelity to thinking about it's about the students and it's about their experience and what's their viewpoint, and that's something that we've tried to maintain as well. But I guess today I just wanted to introduce a couple of remarks to say, you know, we know where we've been, but where are we going? You know, that's, I think, the most important question. And several years ago now, actually quite a few, I think it was in the late 90s somewhere, we had the opportunity to have Bill Gates come to Valencia College. We had a special program on our East Campus that was for persons with disabilities and technology, computer-based technology and all, and he came to visit that program, and he gave a public address on our East Campus that I was in the audience. And one of the things that struck me, again, this was maybe, I don't know, maybe 97, 98, I don't remember exactly. And, you know, you think, oh, God, Bill Gates, yeah, this great guy. And he didn't talk 1 second about anything he had already accomplished. His whole address was about the future. and I just thought, wow, like that's amazing. Like just my own ego, I would need to name like 3 things I had done well, before I started, But he was all about looking forward. And he said that day, and this, I don't know if you can put yourself back there. I know some of you were a lot younger than I am, so maybe you were in middle school at the time. But he said at that time I think a person, like if you were to buy a personal computer, the CPU, all the equipment you needed, the screen and the printer, it probably would have cost you maybe $2,500 at that time. He said, in the not too distant future, everyone will have access because they will cost less than $500. And we were like, no way, And like he knew, yeah. So yeah, that happens now, right? So it's just like amazing. And even the devices on our phones, like, that kind of thing. So with that spirit, I'm really inviting you to this imagination of what is in the future. Like let's leap forward 10, 20 years. What do we want this thing to look like? And then how do we figure out how to get there? So I've been tracking the national conversation on transfer from the community college point of view, and I know it's something Pam Kavanaugh watches very closely, so we're always sharing articles and such as well. But there's 2 main themes that are going on in the community college world. One is the idea of the guided pathway, and completion by design was a major grant initiative funded by the Gates Foundation. There were only 5 colleges nationally that were invited to the invited to that specific project. Miami-Dade was the college in Florida that did that, but it was just this whole idea of getting very clear with students about what is required and the recognition that when new students come to the campus, it's like it's very chaotic, and how do we reduce the chaos? There was a really good article written by a woman with the Community College Research Center called The Shapeless River, in which she makes a pretty convincing argument that for the students who we know come to education with the least prepared, we have the least structure in community colleges, because a lot of our background is flexibility and access and choice and let everybody do whatever they want to do, and so it was really born out of that spirit of individuality. But in the meantime, we've created this absolute chaos, whereas she makes the point, like when you go to Harvard, you're told, here's your 4 classes. This is what you will do your freshman year, And so that was a very seminal article that was written, I think it was published maybe about 8 or 10 years ago now, and a lot of people took it up. So that whole guided pathway is definitely a theme in all the national conferences. I had the opportunity this year to go to the Achieving the Dream and the League for Innovation, which are 2 major national conferences in the community college world. And then, of course, we all know the meta majors. The state of Florida created those, and we've all figured out ways to adopt that as a model, and we have more to do on that as well. And as part of that, at Valencia, we've created what we call the Start Right Guides, and basically we've worked with our faculty, and through our curriculum process, we've identified the front door classes, and there's about 120 of them, when you consider all of our different AS programs. That's why there's so many. And then we took each of them and built a Start Right guide for every program of study a student can start at Valencia. That's 90 at Valencia, and we actually give that to students in orientation, and it has the list of 6 or 10 classes that they can choose from. So again, that idea of reducing choice to make more sense of the pathway. And then there's been this interesting research that's just surfacing on transfer patterns, and this is conducted by the Community College Research Center and from Columbia University and other national partners. So I actually was able to get a couple of their slides I'm going to share with you today. But this is CCRC and the Aspen Institute Public Agenda, and they've actually worked with National Clearinghouse data. So they're actually working on a series of 3 studies. This is the first one that they've released, and you can find, if you just go out to Community College Research Center, it's a wonderful source, and they have this whole study on their site if you're interested in learning more. Dr. Davis Jenkins is the principal investigator with it, and it was him that I got these from. So he's a friend. So one of the things that with the National Clearinghouse data, they just actually took and said, how many transfers are there at community colleges and what percentage of them are getting bachelor's degrees, and they just plotted that. So along the horizontal axis is the number of transfers, and the percentages of who get transfer degrees are up the vertical axis. So that's just a scatter. So their conclusion is there's a lot of variation, right, when you look across the country. And then this is a plot of the transfer students that are at the four-year colleges, what percentages of them are actually completing bachelor's degree. And the blue dots are private, nonprofit, the red are private, for-profit, and the green are public four-year colleges. So again, their conclusion is there's a lot of variation. And the study actually looked for, were there trends by type of institution or type of no, there was no trends. It was just like all over the place. So they also actually produced this map, which looks at productivity in terms of states. So you'll see Florida is the best, of those states that have the highest. We are in that group, but we're only at 43 to 50%, and that's the best. So definitely, a lot more we could do there. It's interesting, Texas, California. It was interesting for me to see this because there are community college leaders in each of these states as well. Well, I don't know. I don't hear too much from Kansas. Well, yeah, I guess from Kansas. I'm trying to think of who would be stand out there. But anyway. But for me, this is just an observation. This is just the world according to Joyce. This is all about mechanics, So I think it's interesting. It's important. It's certainly where we started. We started with the mechanics. I think it's where you have to start. And a lot of the colleges and the conference sessions that I went to, that a lot of people are just starting this work. So we're like 10 years ahead of everybody else because we've been working on this for 10 years. But to me, it ought to be a lot more than mechanics. So that's where I'm interested in what is the next big picture that we might focus on there. So what about the learning, right? And what does that look like from what we've been calling at Valencia Direct Connect 2.0? So this concept of transfer readiness, it's a term that we throw around a lot, but what does it really look like, and how do we observe it, and how do we give feedback to students as to what their evaluation, they can evaluate themselves on where they are with their transfer readiness, like what does that look like? So I'm thinking there's like three maybe components, there's probably more, but three that I thought of was curriculum. I think it's like there's a whole thing around learning readiness. We know that the community college has different instructional strategies, different pedagogy, different assessments strategies that's common to what we do in community college. Frankly, it's why as completely open access institutions, we're able to produce so many bachelor's graduates. The people who can't get into UCF when you guys are admitting your freshman class. We get them ready because of the uniquenesses in our curriculum, in our pedagogy, in our assessment strategies. It gets them ready, right? So that's good. But then when they get to the university, they're experiencing a different set of pedagogy assessments. So an example is like high-stakes tests, right? The classes that have two tests, a midterm and a final, and either you pass or you fail. Now we don't have any community college classes that do that. That one of the hallmarks of community college is that students have multiple opportunities to demonstrate competency. And this is the way we approach it. So it's not like one's better than the other, It's just this is the reality, and how do we get students ready for that? So that's what I mean. There's really deep curriculum work, and we've done some of that, and I think there's a lot more to do. Then this idea of self-direction, there's a personal readiness, right? There's an ability to maneuver and to advocate for oneself as a student, a maturity as a student that students need to be successful at the university. And again, we at community colleges expect a whole lot more than the high schools do, right? So, I mean, I've had, I'm sure we all kind of have stories, but the students, one young lady I was mentoring years ago was struggling in psychology. I said, I don't understand that because you had psychology in high school. She said, yeah, but all of our tests were open book. Oh, okay, yeah, that would be a difference, yeah. So, so they're again, the high schools do different things because of their set of what they're accomplishing. Not bad, not judgmental, just different. So how do we get students ready for these different levels of self-direction that they're expected, and they certainly are expected more at the university than at the community college level. And then last I mentioned, I thought of community, so this idea of social readiness, this idea of really embracing all that the university has to offer, the engagement, the wealth of opportunity and enrichment. It really, to me, gets back to that age-old question of what does it mean to be a college-educated person? It's not just a collection of courses. It's not just a degree I have on my transcripts, right? So it's a whole way of thinking about the world, of interacting in the world, of being self-reflective, being self-directive, and then that's really what we're trying to accomplish. So there's a ton more we can do there, too, as far as getting students ready. So we've been thinking about this in terms of ecosystem, and actually I want to give credit. This was a phrase that Dr. Shugart, our president, coined several years ago, and so we've been exploring it in terms of what if we thought of Direct Connect as an educational ecosystem. And so I looked up this morning, actually, some definition of ecosystem, and these are what I found. And many of them, just on the web, are oriented to biological, organism kinds of things. I mean, that's, I think, the origin of the word. But certainly one could think of ecosystem in other ways, and I think that it's a metaphor that works well for our area as well. So a group of interconnected elements formed by the interaction of a community of organisms with their environment. Ecosystem, each organism has its own niche to play. So it's kind of an interesting play on that. So I would say that we have new opportunities to go deeper, broader, bigger. Understanding transfer readiness really very deeply, like what does that mean? How do we recognize it? How do we help students to recognize it? How do we help students to prepare? This educational ecosystem, so not just us and the university, community college, university, but also the K-12 systems that we all work with. And so then that makes you think about readiness in a little bit different way, right? Because it's not about college readiness. It's just like what's third grade readiness, right? So, I have the opportunity to work with our K-12 partners very deeply. I'm sure many of you in the room do. And so this is the thing that they worry about, is what's third grade reading levels and fifth grade math scores, and so what are those indicators? And the challenge there is to think about it in terms of a model that allows for aspiration, not weeding people out, right? So that's the danger in looking at that. You don't want to look at a third grader and say, well, because your reading level isn't up, you're not going to make it. You say, no, in order to do this is where, so again, a model that would pull students through and inspire them and their families to what's possible in terms of higher educational success is really the model that we're looking for. So there's so then looking for developing those models of student success. And I have to put this hint here because it does annoy me. In nearly all of these national conversations I'm at, they actually have, I've seen videos, some of you have heard me rail about them, where they actually show little gears turning around and little people coming out, and they're like, this is the model of what we're trying to, no, I am not producing widgets. We are developing humans. And human development is not linear. So our systems have to take that into account. There has to be the possibility of iterative learning. And one of my favorite Zen sayings, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So how do we develop systems that are ready when the student is ready? That's really the bigger challenge. It's not a linear, you missed it, sorry, you're out kind of thing. So that's a huge challenge. And then we want to, of course, develop very robust feedback systems, both for our students and for ourselves, so that we can keep in our process of continuous improvement. So I think today is the perfect day to start. The next 10, 20, 30 years, some of you are going to have to write me about it when I'm in the home, you know. Hopefully I'll remember you, or I'll remember Direct Connect. I'm not promising anything, but come visit me. Come tell me about it. We've got lots of opportunity for really, really making a difference. As Jeff indicated, we are the national model, but that's really not what it's about. You know, what it's about is our students in our ecosystem. They all belong to us. How can we help each one of them be the best they can be? So, thank you. I'm so glad to be here today to join with you.
Thank you. I think we'll, hello? Hello, good morning? Nope. I know I can speak loudly enough for this group, but I will not go over that camera. Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay, good. It's hard to tell up here. Well, thank you very much. And while it's magically appeared, once again, magic. Let me say, has Jim Henningsen arrived? I haven't seen him yet, but he's on his way. Dr. Henningsen, I want to recognize a president who is with us this morning, and that's Tom Labassa from Daytona State College. I know Dr. Henningsen is on his way. I'd hoped that maybe he would arrive so I could introduce both of them together, but Jim will be speaking to us this afternoon a little bit. And as we all know, the College of Central Florida and Daytona State College are two new partners that have joined this calendar year, and we're very happy to have them today and moving forward, and I'm sure that all of our students will benefit from their membership in Direct Connect. So thank you very much, Tom, for being with us today. We're going to talk a little bit today about our self-study on the transfer focus on Foundations of Excellence. Before I go into any detail here, let me recognize our three co-leads for the Foundation of Excellence transfer focus that was conducted at University of Central Florida this year. First of all, Dr. Chanda Torres, if you would please. There she is over there. Chanda. Dr. Bill Self. And Dr. Jennifer Sumner. This hard-working trio of superstars, how's that? Represent the Student Development and Enrollment Services, SDES, at UCF, regional campuses with Dr. Sumner, and finally our faculty with Dr. Self. So they did a great job this year of working through our Foundations of Excellence transfer focus self-study last year and now implementation. So let me talk a little bit about that today. First, let me tell you that very recently UCF was recognized as #1 in transfer students by U.S. News and World Report as the #1 transfer receiving institution in the country by numbers. Now, when you understand that we are the second largest university in the country by numbers, that may be somewhat intuitive, but I can tell you that a very large percentage of our students, as you all know, come in as transfer students. So a little bit about those numbers. You can see that UCF admits over 10,000 transfer students annually. 60% of our new undergraduates came to UCF as transfers, 54% of whom were Direct Connect to UCF with a AA or an AS degree. The number is growing very quickly. You can see the pie chart there. Direct Connect is a predominant force in the enrollment at the University of Central Florida. Foundations of Excellence Transfer Initiative is, of course, part of the John Gardner Institute for Excellence in Undergraduate Education. Most of the institutions who have gone through this process with the Gardner Institute have focused on first-time in college, FTIC students. However, we're one of 9 institutions that have now begun to study the effects on transfer students. Another major university that's doing this and is on the same timeline as us is Indiana University, Purdue University of Indianapolis, 2 institutions of which I was formerly engaged, and I can tell you they're doing very excellent work too, and I believe that our team has frequently compared notes with IUPUI to learn about what we're doing and where we can go from this. But some data about this. 2 surveys were distributed, over 17,000 student and 1,000 faculty staff respondents to the survey, and there were over 200 faculty staff and partner representatives on the FOE task forces. So how many in this room participated one way or another on one of those committees? A good number. You are all experts in this process, probably more so than me. I did have the opportunity to serve as the co-chair along with Mary Beth Ehas from SDES at UCF, and so it was a fascinating process. But we did our self-study the last academic year, and this year we're beginning an implementation. These surveys were conducted. There were 7,267 invited faculty and staff. We had a response rate of 14.6%. 1,069 faculty and staff responded. 267 faculty, 88 administrators, professional staff, 147, technical, clerical, and service personnel, 45, and graduate students. organizations, 30 of those specifically target transfer students. Thank you. 500 volunteer programs, 600 entertainment programs. Curriculum alignment. Where are we on the slide here? Let me go on with a couple data points. Curriculum alignment. 46.3% of faculty reported having only a slight to moderate understanding of Direct Connect to UCF. Again, let me repeat. 46% of our faculty reported only a slight to moderate understanding of Direct Connect to UCF. And we all know that when our students matriculate to UCF, many of the most meaningful transactions that they have, engagement that they have, is with faculty. And yet our faculty don't really understand what Direct Connect's all about. Everyone knows the brand. We all watch television. We all hear and read things. But there's a fundamental lack of understanding about what that means. 51% of our faculty reported having no interactions at all with counterpoints at sending institutions. Over half of our faculty have no meaningful engagement with their colleagues at the state colleges. Communication. 57% of all faculty staff respondents reported to a slight to moderate degree that UCF has effectively organized itself to develop an integrated first year that supports routine communications among discrete first-year functions. 32.4% of students reported just slightly or not at all that faculty staff have helped them examine their personal reasons for getting a college education. And 55% of our students reported very high or high satisfaction with academic advising at UCF. Now, I'm sure any of these three data points could be taken as positives or negatives depending upon how you want to view that. 55% of our students are highly satisfied with academic advising. Well, that sounds good. But of course, we all understand that that means 45% are not very impressed by that. So we know we've got work to do. Some of the other data are almost upside down, where fewer than half are satisfied with particular services. Academic success. 42% of faculty reporting had slight to no understanding of the demographic characteristics of transfer students. 30% of faculty reported having slight to no understanding of the academic needs of transfer students. Engagement. FTIC students are 3 times more likely to report a higher level of campus involvement versus their transfer peers. 3 times higher for faculty in campus, for campus involvement. 54% of FTIC students reported being either very involved or somewhat involved, compared to 32.5% of the transfer cohort. Quite a gap, 20-point gap, 22-point gap for engagement. 36.5% of transfer students who completed the survey acknowledged that they were not involved in any campus activities. 36.5. Joyce talked about the mechanics. She also talked about where we go next. We know and understand that some of these social issues, some of the personal issues that Joyce spoke about are key. Why do we see this transfer shock, as it's sometimes called? Students who have done well in other educational environments that are now suddenly struggling once they matriculate to this huge university on the other side of town, or sometimes not on the other side of town. But certainly those are issues that we're trying to explore here. From this, theme 1, I'm going to step aside here. Transfer philosophy statement. These are the findings from our self-study, the action items. Create, adopt, distribute a campus-wide philosophy statement. I've already talked about that. So far, it's very meaningful work, but it hasn't gone as quickly as we anticipated. We've got work to do. Communication. Create coordinated messaging about transfer success. Remember that a lot of people don't understand much about Direct Connect other than the fact it's out there, it's a powerful brand. They don't understand the intricacies of that. They also don't understand this huge number of programs and initiatives that are in place to assist transfer students. Transfer credit evaluation. How many of you were here last year? I hope a large number of you were, to hear our colleague from Arizona State University talk about their MAP project, the Maricopa Academic Plan, I believe it was called. This is something that was foremost in our self-study. There's a lot of interest in us developing that same kind of tool to ensure that our students know how their credits are going to transfer, what they look like in a particular curriculum, and where we go from there. So we're going to move forward on that with the transfer credit evaluation. Create a student-friendly system, very important phrase. 4, curriculum alignment. I know that some of us in this room have been very involved in curriculum alignment, as well as advising alignment. And those efforts are going, in my opinion, very well. Again, I think if people from around the country were trying to look at some models, I think that curriculum alignment would be one of the things that they would try to emulate. It's a deep engagement between faculty at UCF and faculty at our community partners, our state college partners. However, we know that we need to expand this. It's primarily been in the STEM areas. Now we know that there's also opportunities in things like English, like business, like accounting. How do we expand these efforts? Clearly that's an emphasis that we're going to look at under theme 4. Transfer orientation. Create a transfer orientation experience that prepares students prior to their arrival to UCF within the first year. Obviously, we have been attempting to do just that, but we have work to do. And you're going to hear from some students this morning. I'm not specifically going to forecast that they're going to talk about orientation, but it's always exciting for me to hear from students who have undergone the process, because they understand better than any of us in the room how that worked for them, and how it worked for them and their peers, and how they were able to adapt based on those experiences. Transfer engagement. Create holistic student experience that will assist in developing academic, personal, social, and professional skills of students. Kind of looks like Joyce's outline, doesn't it? This is where we know we have to go. Experience in successful progression, graduation, and employment in a global workplace, global workforce. Our students need to know what the relevancy is of what they're studying. We understand that that is a learning. Why is this relevant? Why am I learning these things? How am I going to apply this to the rest of my life? Learning principles. And finally, theme 7, academic success. Create academic support services for faculty, staff, and students to result in a greater understanding, involvement, and communication to transfer student success. We at UCF are committed to eliminating any gap between our FTIC students and those students who are transferring to UCF. We're dedicated to that as one of our key goals going forward. We have some work to do. And as you know, our FTIC, First Time in College Profile, is getting more and more impressive, if you will, each year. We now have a combined SAT score for our FTICs of about 1260. The weighted GPA of that FTIC class coming in the fall that we report our course to iPads is now 4.0. Those are tough standards if you look simply at those academic credentials coming in to UCF. And so the work that we do together to try to eliminate the gap between our transfer students and our FTICs is meaningful and challenging work. But I'm here to say that I know that with the dedication of the people in this room that we can get that done. But as I started out the morning by saying that this FOE study that we've done is about UCF and how we treat students. It's also about this educational ecosystem that we've talked about, because we know that much of this work, in order for students to be successful once they transfer and to eliminate the transfer shock that we talk about, these students have to become better prepared when they hit our campus. And so many things that we're working on with all of our state college partners are aimed in that direction. And so what we want to do today is certainly dig into that a little bit more to find out what meaningful things we can do and the meaningful things that our state college partners can assist UCF in doing to ensure that we can eliminate this gap over the next 4 to 5 years. And so that's what we're imploring you to do today. Let me ask, we reached out to some of our K-12 partners. Who in the room is from our K-12 partners today? Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. Let's all acknowledge that none of these pathways, as Joyce said, what's that third grader look like? What's that fifth grader look like? None of these pathways begin or end at the door to our institution. They develop way before students come to us, and they're still developing way after students leave our respective institutions. How do we develop that pathway to the point where we don't encounter gaps on the way there? That's the work that we're doing today. So thank you again very much for being here. We're going to hear from some students next. We're going to take a little bit of a break now. Are there any questions that I can try to answer? And I guarantee you, if I can't answer them, my colleagues in the room can that have been leading this effort. Questions? Dr. Mueller.
Jeff, maybe if the team could maybe tell us, I think these are important themes, when they may be implemented to be disseminated among the faculty and staff within the university community.
Bill, do you or Jenny want to take that? You're the faculty rep. Maybe you would. Plus that, Eric's closer to you with that microphone. Here's your microphone, Bill.
So we're in phase 2 of year 2. There's a third phase that this is what the Gardner Institute uses as our timeline. Phase 3 is when all of these teams are going to have all of their plans written up, and then we submit that to the Gardner Institute, and then they give us feedback. And at that point, then we're going to bring that plan to the university community and our community partners. What that timeline is, we're still, looking at it.
Jenny, you have anything to add, or Chana?
Thanks, Bill, for that. Just one thing I'd like to add is that some of our action teams are actually looking at implementation right now. So we have identified a few action pieces that are easily implemented. So, for instance, orientation. That action team is already changing some things with the current orientation practices at UCF. So we're seeing some early indications of implementation, but as Bill mentioned, it's a longer-term process for long-term sustainability. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Yes, Joyce. Or maybe an answer.
Well, it's actually just a kind of an observation, I guess. It's kind of a wonder, I guess you'd say, because I thought it was interesting, the data about the faculty. I think you said some high percentage were not aware of transfer students or something like that. They don't know much about transfer students and stuff like that. And I'm wondering, it's just kind of a question, like, I wonder if that's in some ways a good thing. Like, it's not like the transfer students are in bold relief in their courses, and just reminds me of I had an occasion a few years ago to attend a friend's wedding with my husband, so I was sitting at a table with people who didn't know me or my background or what I did for a living, and so there was a University of Florida faculty member there who had very interesting perspectives about the the depravity of transfer students, and he chose to express them at this wedding. So of course anybody knows me, I was not going to sit still for that. So anyway, it's just interesting, like, from his perspective. But I'm like, well, how do you know who the transfer students are? And then because the two that he had a problem with happened to be transfer students. In other words, my point to him was, you probably had 15 other transfer students in your classroom that you didn't even know were transfer students because they didn't stand out to you in any particular way. So it's just kind of an interesting mix. Like, there's two sides of that, I guess, an observation about that. So you'd hope it would be in a supportive way that they would recognize transfer students, but, could be another side of that.
Another good wedding reception ruined. Well, as with many of these data points, I think, again, depending on your perspective, the fact that 46.3% of faculty reported having only slight to moderate understanding of direct connect to UCF, 51%, let me see here, where 41.8% of faculty reported having slight to no understanding of the demographic characteristics of transfer students. 30% of faculty reported having slight to no understanding of the academic needs of transfer students. You know, I think, again, when you have different perspectives on these things, those may be positives, they may be negatives. I know that there's a strong feeling among certain of our faculty, they don't want to know coming into their experience. You know, we have the self-fulfilling prophecy and all that stuff of how students were academically prepared coming into the courses. We, of course, hope that through curriculum alignment efforts and others, they're completely prepared for these third and fourth year classes once they matriculate from a state college. But again, I think that's the work that we need to do. Our goals for today, Jenny reminded me, never quit before the last slide is up. That's why we all have these wonderful handlers that make sure we get through things. What are we currently doing really well that enhances the success of transfer students? What can we do better to improve, enhance transfer student success? And what do we need to do to get there? A simple three-part. What do we do well? What can we improve upon? How do we get there? And those are going to be the core questions as we explore these issues this afternoon, this late morning and this afternoon, after we hear from our panel. And I think it's close to what on the agenda appears as a break. And so if you would please, we'll try to reconvene at 10:15. And remember, we'll have students awaiting our re-arrival. So please try to be prompt. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the problem. We're recording it, so.
All right. Yeah. We're on time.
If we can begin to get our seats, please. Our students are probably giving up all kinds of things today to be with us, so thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you again Dr. Jennifer Sumner from Regional Campuses, who will serve as the moderator for our student panel. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm going to take this out. It's a little bit easier. So as Jeff mentioned, FOE has become pervasive at UCF. It's been one of those types of programs that we feel is transformative at the university. And early on, when we were beginning the foundational conversations last year when we first began FOE, one of the suggestions from the Executive Council and also from our co-leads, Bill, Chanda, and myself, it was very important that we got the student voice involved. It was critical that we had that aspect of Foundations of Excellence, which I actually think the Gardner Institute was very impressed with because it's not part of the prescription in terms of his particular process. So we developed what we called a student council. And the student council was very much engaged in our entire FOE process. So as we continue on the conversation with FOE, pardon me, and how we can partner in terms of transfer student success, we felt it very critical that we have that student voice with us today. So I'm happy to introduce our student panel. I'm going to have them go down the line and introduce themselves, tell a little bit about where they transferred from, what their major is at UCF, and then we have a series of questions that we're going to ask the students to respond to, and then we're going to save some time to open it up to the floor. So if you have any questions that you're just dying to ask our student panel, now's the time, because these are the experts in terms of transfer success and transfer readiness. So if you, again, have any burning questions, burning questions, just feel free to jot them down and we'll happily ask the students when the time comes. So I'm going to start here with Eric. Eric, if you can give us a little bit about yourself, and you can use the mic if you like.
Hi, my name is Eric Claiborne. When I was first asked to be on this panel, I was a little bit, I thought, maybe they didn't know who I actually was because I'm a little bit older. I'm actually 55 years old. I'm transferring in from Daytona State. I actually attend UCF on the regional campus over at Daytona. And as I said, I'm a veteran, so that kind of gives me another little bit of a path and when understand what happened and explain some things about transferring in as a veteran. I spent 33 years in the military, and yes, I did all this school thing once before, but I want to do something totally different. So I'm majoring in psychology, and I hope to go to grad school in the MSW program also at UCF.
Hello, my name is Sarah Gray. I am a junior at UCF. I am majoring in communication sciences and disorders and pursuing a certificate in TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language. And I transferred from Lake Sumter State College, and I spent most of my time on the Leesburg campus, and that's what I've got.
Hello? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Joelle Figueroa. I'm a junior at UCF. I transferred from Valencia College at Osceola. Right now I'm majoring in criminal justice with a minor in legal studies, and hopefully in a year or two I will go to law school somewhere in the South.
Hello, my name is Sequoia Jarvis. I'm also a junior at UCF. I'm currently majoring in health sciences preclinical, looking to go to grad school for physical therapy, and yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam. I transferred from Valencia West Campus, so this is home for me, or my first home. I'm majoring in international and global studies with a minor in national security. I'm a non-traditional student, so I spent 10 years in the banking industry first and then decided that I wanted to go back. I have 2 kids, and so this transfer experience is really special to me. So I can't wait to talk about it.
So when I was first asking these students to join us for today, some of them said, well, you know, I'm a little bit nervous. And I said, oh, don't be nervous. It's a unique audience, and where else are you going to get an hour to speak about yourselves? So it's all about you today, guys. So my first question to the student panel is, when you were at your state college, did you know anything about Direct Connect? And if so, what did you know about the Direct Connect process?
I reached out to my Direct Connect on the East Campus, because I did go to the East Campus, I'm sorry, Valencia East, and they did help me through my process. I went to the workshop where they helped you fill out the UCF application to actually enroll into UCF, and I kept a really good communication between them because I had to turn in my immunization forms, and they just kept up with me and made sure that I got all my forms in and that I heard back from UCF, and they told me it was going to take some time, so yeah.
I definitely saw the branding all over campus, but I didn't realize that it was something that you had to apply for. So I kind of just assumed that I was already Direct Connect, but I didn't find out that I wasn't until my application for UCF. And so, but I was actually told that it helped me because I forgot to apply for graduation, which I didn't realize I had to do. And but they, somebody from UCF, when I called, they said that it was helpful actually that I had not been Direct Connect, because then I wouldn't have been able to head into UCF right away. And so I was a little confused by that, but it worked out. Like, I got in, and it was fine, so it was great. But I didn't actually know the process.
For me, it was very, I only spent a year over at Daytona State, having had a lot of previous college experience. So therefore, it was really quick, and things were happening so fast that one day I just happened to wander over and see Miss LaRue, who is our Direct Connect counselor over at Daytona State, over at UCF for Daytona State. And she quickly got me online and all the different things, and a couple of things I'll talk about as we get further into this. But it was a very easy, quick process, and she explained to me in a matter of like an hour or so what I needed to do and to keep me on track.
For me, I actually knew about Direct Connect back in high school, and so this was a long-range plan. I applied to a series of schools, and I got accepted, and I was even accepted to UCF the first round. But in being a communication science disorders major, I know that I have to go to grad school to even consider being certified, my C's. And so, to make it more cost effective, I figured that I would take my 2 years that I would apply to my undergraduate, apply that money to graduate school, and I received enough scholarships to make it through with my AA. So it was kind of a nice long-range plan, and even applying to different schools in different programs, I appreciated the Direct Connect experience because it cut out a lot of red tape, and it created access to a really phenomenal program that I could get involved with.
So for me, I did know about it in high school as well. At first, I was one of those students that wanted to, go out of state, get away from home. But my parents actually knew about it because we had other family that did the whole Direct Connect thing as well. So I went to Valencia, Osceola campus, and I didn't know you had to sign up for it, but all I did was ask the advising center, and they did something on the computer, and they were like, yeah, so you're part of Direct Connect. So, it was really simple, and yeah.
So as you were involved with Direct Connect, how did you prepare at your state institution to start the transfer process? Did you know about, one, the majors that you were interested in, and did you complete those prerequisites at the state institution? And what did you do to start preparing for your transfer into UCF?
Well, I actually have friends who already were attending UCF. So I use them as a guide, and also I use the UCF catalog to base my prerequisites that I took at Valencia, like all my science courses. Like I took anatomy, biology, and other science courses here at UCF, so I could take my more higher education level classes that I needed at UCF, so I wouldn't have to go back and take biology when I get there. So it was way easier. And also, when I was at Valencia, I was a student leader as a financial learning ambassador. So actually being able to work in the financial aid and office and having the connections with them, they also helped me talk to advisors at UCF, not at UCF, at Valencia, that I probably wouldn't talk to on my own. And I realized, oh, okay, seeing an advisor was actually very efficient here. So I actually really thank them for doing that. Because when you're just a student, sometimes you don't see how efficient it is to go and talk to an advisor until you have someone who understands and tells you, yeah, you need to go see your advisor because they can tell you all the classes that you need, which they did. So it was really helpful.
For me, one of the things they did at Osceola, and I'm guessing as well as the other campuses, is they really stress talking to an advisor. Or is it career services transition? Yeah. So basically, I had to go there and ask them what do I need my prereqs for criminal justice? But I didn't have any prereqs for criminal justice, but I know other majors they do. But that's how I prepared. I just made sure I didn't have any prereqs, and if I did, just to make sure I take them all there, just so I don't save money and everything. Yeah.
So I didn't see a Direct Connect advisor, but I just saw a general one, and I made it very clear, it was right when I had first started, that I wouldn't be able to come in regularly because they suggest coming in every semester, and it was just not feasible, the wait time, and then to even make it here to have the conversation. So we had a very detailed conversation the first time, and it was efficient, which was great and very beneficial for me. But that was the only time I saw the advisor, and then we got everything squared away that day, and then I didn't have to come back. I came back once right before I graduated, just to make sure that everything was okay.
I, being my concrete thinking self, I went on and I printed out my course prerequisites because I had an idea where I wanted to go. I cross-referenced that with the courses available at Lake Sumter, and then I went in just to confirm with the Direct Connect advisor that I was on the right track. And it was great because she caught a few nuances and course abbreviations that I didn't catch, and I also got connected to the ASL program at Lake Sumter, which was fantastic, and that gave me a great foundation going into UCF. So between her and me and my obsessive researching, it all worked out for the better, so it went great.
One of the things that was interesting for me was not the process itself, because the process itself went very, very smooth, and the classes and the prerequisites were all laid out. But one of the courses in psychology that I think is very, very crucial, and it's a lower level course, is their Psychology Cornerstone course. And to me, that was a course that I really think that, and it's an online course, I think it's only 2 hours, and that would have been a great course while I was still at Daytona State to take that course, because what that Cornerstone course does, it builds you up for your studies in psychology, and it's very, very crucial, and you learn a lot of different things from that course. And that's just one of the pieces just I felt that kind of I was like, oh, I should have took this last year. It would have been a great, great help. So, and I'm not exactly sure how that would work, if it would work with the I know there's a program and there's a website for it where you can be inside of UCF and take a class back at Daytona State, or you could be at Daytona State and take a class at UCF. But that would be a great class if you're in that major to be able to take, because it really lays the foundation and the footwork, lays the foundation for you. And it kind of would have, it kind of helped me figure out between psychology and social work where I really wanted to go. And that just would have been a great class.
So then the next question I have, and Sarah, maybe you won't answer this because you seem like a person that doesn't have any surprises come at you because you're so prepared. But what, as you were getting ready to transition into UCF, what were some barriers or challenges that you faced? What surprised you the most? What did you feel was a challenge that you had to overcome in order to transfer into UCF?
Okay, so the biggest thing for me was the immunizations. Valencia didn't require them, and I just barely made it. I ended up calling my high school, and they were like, you would have missed it by 1 year if you waited. And so we were ready to send them off or whatever they do with them. So luckily I got it. The other one was not knowing that I had to apply for graduation. I kind of just assumed it was whether if you wanted to walk or not, and I didn't want to walk. So that's why I was like, oh, it doesn't apply to me. So that was those are the two things that I saw, okay. But I was able to get in with the germ stamp, which someone told me about in the business office, so that was really helpful.
For me, the transition was easy in the aspect of administrative, all the paperwork and everything. But I think for me, one of the hardest things was adjusting to just UCF in general, to go from 4 buildings at Osceola to this whole area that I still get lost in. But I mean, that was really it for me. But like I said, it was just adjusting to it was difficult for me.
The biggest challenge, well, there were two. The biggest challenge that I faced transferring to UCF was twofold. One was a bit of a culture shock. So I'm from Lake Sumter. I live in Leesburg, which is 10 minutes away from the Villages. So I'm really used to golf carts and roundabouts and people over the age of 65. And to be surrounded by, and so to be, I got in this mindset of an individual, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I was trying to get experience in my field. I knew where I needed to go, and so I was starting to gain these experiences, but you kind of get this whole idea of I'm all alone in the universe, and and then I get into my major, and I'm surrounded by 100 girls that are exactly like me and have very similar experiences. I struggled the first semester not to compare myself with another person's measuring tape. And that was really challenging, and it took a lot of phone calls with my mom to talk me through it. And then the second challenge I think I faced, especially there are a lot of people that transfer from state institutions that plan to go to graduate school. And for me, going through the process, I would say, I know I eventually need to be looking at grad school. What can I be doing to prepare? And a lot of the responses I got were, that's a really long way off. I mean, be studying for your GRE, but just prepare yourself and you'll apply, you'll be okay. And then I got in, and in talking to faculty and different members in my department, it was, well, you need to have shadowing hours, and you need to, are you involved in research? How can you be getting involved in all these different things? And I was like, I just found out where Starbucks is. What's going on? And so I felt like I was 2 steps behind, and it's been a lot of running around madly, trying to feel like I'm preparing myself, and I'm at the point where I can start applying for grad school, and I have a strong enough foundation for that. But that's about it.
For me, some of the challenges, and there really weren't many great challenges, but one of the challenges really was just understanding some of the things that I had overlooked. Like, for instance, I had to have 2 years of Spanish for my major, but for Daytona State, they accepted my Spanish from high school. So now all of a sudden I can and I didn't catch that in time to figure out I could have taken those 2 years of Spanish then. So now I'm doubling back and picking up the two semesters of Spanish. Besides that, one of the other things that myself and Mr. Robinson caught on to was when I was registering, the differences between when I was at Daytona State. If I was in a course, and this is for the VA, for the Veterans Association, if I was in a course and it was over 65% in class, then they considered that a regular a lecture face-to-face class. When you transfer to UCF, if the class is 5% online, if it even looks like it's online, it's going to have letters inside where there should be numbers for the last 4 digits of the course, and then that course is not going to be accepted as a face-to-face course, and that's a major change and a difference. And of course, my first time around, we kind of accidentally missed that. Now, I'll tell you the great side about it was Rafael then quickly found a course to put me in that was a full face-to-face lecture course, and what that does is it changes your benefits. And for UCF in Orlando, that changes your benefits to the tune of $700 a month. So you go from $700, which is half of your benefits, to a full $1,400, which is all of the benefits. So it's a major thing. It's just something we caught on to, and when it happened, at first I was willing to just accept the to say, okay, for these 3 or 4 months, I won't actually see that extra $700. And Rafael was like, no, we'll find you a course. And he actually started calling some of the regional professors and sitting there going like, hey, can I put him in your course? And it was one of the courses that I actually needed, and Professor Claypool put me in the course, and I did well in the course, and it was quite a bit of a challenge. And the other fun part was that I learned a lot about the whole program because I had to go through, because I went over the amount of hours, so I had to go through student account services. I had to do so many different things that when you're at a regional campus, it's not that easy to do because they want paperwork, and then all of a sudden my letter from my professor was over 3 days old, so it's like, well, now you need a new letter. So you had to kind of go backwards, which when we started to go through that part, made me feel very back at home, like being in the Army, because I said, oh, this is just like the Army or the State Department. There's a lot of bureaucracy here.
All right, next question. But before we move on, I have to say that someone that also lived in Leesburg, your description of the villages was surprisingly accurate.
Thank you.
So, yeah, absolutely. So we talked about a few of the challenges or barriers. What was the biggest success for you in terms of transferring? What did you find that you thought might have been, that you were anticipating as being difficult, but it was a seamless process, or something that you felt was a success for you during that transfer experience?
Getting the germ stamp, and I was really worried about what I was going to do if I wasn't accepted, and but after speaking to someone from UCF who said, well, actually it's going to work in your favor that you're not direct connect and that you didn't apply for graduation, so they advised the germ stamp. I went back to the business office here, and they said, yeah, we can definitely do that. And it was, I just got a stamp on my, I didn't even see the stamp. I mean, it was, sent with my transcripts, and everything was done electronically. I didn't have to go to UCF, which was the most beneficial thing. I only had to come here, and I live closer to here, so it was perfect.
A really positive thing with my transfer experience was, and it's one of the selling points that brought me into the UCF program and the institution, is there are so many resources out there that are connected to UCF that you don't even realize. And I worked for a principal who was a former faculty member at UCF, and so as I was transferring in, she said, oh, you're doing CSD, this is great. This is a colleague of mine that I worked with, I want you to talk to him, and it opened up a dialogue, and there was a lot of opportunity that I was able to make just because of different people that I connected with that were faculty members of UCF, and it opened a lot of doors. There was one professor from Lake Sumter who had previously taught at UCF, and I was really nervous about, I didn't think I could handle the rigor of the courses, and I was apprehensive about that. And in taking that class with Professor Olin was fantastic, because it was, his curriculum was the same at UCF as it was at Lake Sumter, and after that, my anxiety level of, am I going to be able to cut it? I don't know. It was really lowered, and so what I appreciated about the whole Direct Connect experience is that you connect into an entire network of professionals that have either come into contact with UCF or have taught at UCF, and it made the whole experience so much more enriched, and I really appreciated that.
So this is actually pretty recent. I think one of the issues with transferring is that we don't know how to get involved on campus, because Valencia is, Osceola is so small. They don't really teach you hey, these are the resources you have at UCF, so take the chance. So one of the things I had to do myself was to look up things that I could be involved in. So it's kind of hard just because a lot of the requirements are you have to being a freshman at UCF for a while. So I just had to really look, and I joined a sorority. I have honor societies, transfer student honor society. That was just my biggest challenge for me transitioning in, was trying to find something to be involved in without, meeting the requirements and everything. Yeah.
So you bring up a good point that I want to touch on for just a second. When you first transferred into UCF, what one unit or organization did you find that you connected with the most, or that was the most beneficial for you to reach out to and get involved with?
I didn't really get involved until this semester, actually. I only knew about the organizations that I'm involved with now because of my classes. There are criminal justice organizations, honor societies, that they would speak about, which I never paid attention to because I guess the transition itself was hard for me, so being involved would have been harder, on top of the class already. But that was it really. Just my classes would talk about it and all the organizations they have, as well as my advisors.
One of the things I think that went very well and very easy for me was the fact that I had met some people at Daytona State, some fellow students, some close to my age and some close to my kids' age. And we had pretty much figured out that we headed toward the same major. So that kind of really helped the fact that, and I think we even surprised Miss Angela when, I think we were the first time she ever had two students show up to do their registration together. And it was like, and we just sat there because we knew we were actually going to take pretty much the same classes, so we were able to, and just having that someone else to work with, and that's kind of been the, what I say I did different this time around in school, more so than the other times. In the Army, I learned things about being part of a team, and it kind of like to have people going through the same thing you're going through with. So the whole connection and the whole transfer piece, there were 3 or 4 of us that were doing it at the same time, so it was very smooth, very easy with the staff out at the regional campus for UCF and at Daytona. So it worked out very well for us, and it was very smooth. But a key piece was having friends and things, people to do it with. And I felt that's what I kind of hear a little bit different from my side of the story from some of my colleagues here, is the fact that there were like 4 or 5 of us actually doing all of this together. So it was just kind of, it was really easy and really smooth. And that kind of came from the fact that we were direct connect coming from Daytona State together also.
Well, personally, my involvement, this is my second semester at UCF, and I actually got involved with UCF, like involved and got into organizations my first semester. I'm actually a Unite ambassador for the Transfer and Transitions Office, TTS for short, and they basically, when we go to orientation, they ask you to follow their Facebook page, and through their Facebook page, I found out about the Unite Ambassador position, and as a Unite Ambassador, it opened a lot of doors for me. I currently serve as I'm a part of the FOE Student Council, so that was neat, and you also get to they actually allow you to build your marketing skills and your event planning skills. So I have held events with SGA for transfer students. We did an RSO speed dating where transfer students can actually come out and meet different student organizations on UCF campus. So yeah, and I'm also a member of NCNW, the National Council of Negro Women. So I've actually got involved with UCF as soon as I came here through my friends as well, my personal connections friends. When I was at Valencia, I would go to NCNW meetings. And I also am the vice president of the Transfer Nights, which is also a transfer organization for transfer students. So I just feel that faculty and staff at Valencia or even at UCF should tell transfer students when they meet a transfer student that TTS is actually the perfect hub and place for transfer students to come and visit, because there's so many resources there, so many things that transfer students can actually go there and learn about and actually become a part of. So that's why when some transfer students say that they don't know about getting involved in organizations or stuff on UCF, it's not that it blows my mind, because it kind of does, because we do send out a lot of emails to the transfer students telling them, hey, we're having an event at TTS, come out, come show your face, come meet other transfer students like you so you guys can connect with each other. Like recently at UCF, one of our events is TTS with bagels, and I actually met a recent transfer student. He transferred this spring there, and he's also majoring in health sciences as well and wants to do physical therapy. And I was like, oh, cool, here, do this. And he actually became a part of an actual organization for physical therapy, which I have to get involved in. See, he's one step ahead of me. But yeah, so it's just that transfer students, the resources are there, but we just have to take that step and do it, because TTS is actually really beneficial. It's really beneficial, so just tell them TTS is there.
Good, Jen. She sounds like the PR for TTS and probably should be. Jason, you're there. Okay, so my involvement, very similar. It started with orientation, and I heard about the Unite program, and then got involved with FOE per the Unite program. It was an email that sent out. But my mindset going in was a little different. It was because I have a family and I have other obligations and responsibilities, I kind of thought like, well, there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunities for me. So I'm going to talk to you guys too. I feel like I kind of talked to the other side of the room. So I emailed a professor, because this is my second semester, so I had taken him before, and I emailed him because he is the advisor for Model UN, and it was something that I was really interested in, but their time they meet is only on Tuesdays, and I couldn't do it. So, but he offered other suggestions, and that connected me with another student who's also a parent, and so I was able to learn about the undergraduate research office. And that's just another way for non-traditional students to get involved, where it's not, it's just not feasible to meet every single week, especially when I'm meeting other weeks for classes, and it just seems like the class is more important than the other things. But being in the TTS office, I know that they're equally important, and so the best advice I'd have, like, for involvement is just to know that there are other opportunities, and it's not just clubs and organizations. There's other ways to get involved, and they look just as good on your resume, because that's ultimately, I mean, what we want when we get out of here.
So I have one final question before we turn it over to the audience for questions. One of the things that we talk about is this effect called transfer shock, in the sense of that, especially if you come from a smaller institution into a larger institution, there's that period of adjustment where a student can also can often feel overwhelmed. Did you have or experience transfer shock perhaps in your first semester at UCF, and if so, what did you do to overcome that?
Well, my first semester at UCF, I was only able to take 2 classes because I took the last orientation. Yeah. So, like, my biggest class was 75 people. Just seeing more people, it really didn't affect me that much. I'm just like, oh, more people in class, cool. So yeah, I just sat in class and I did my work. I connected with other people because sometimes my professors did group work and we were in a group, so we were forced to talk to each other. So I guess that helped. But this semester, I actually have my first 300 plus class, which is chemistry. And again, I just sat there and was like, oh, more people. And, you know, I'm just there to learn and just have to do what I have to do. So transfer shock didn't really affect me as much. Just going from 25 to a 300 class, yeah, you just go in and you're like, oh, the room's bigger. And you know, you just sit there and listen. Yeah, it's harder to communicate to your professor, but your professors, they do stay after class for like a couple of minutes. So, you know, you just have to use that opportunity to go and talk to them and be like, oh, okay, well, you went over this. I didn't really get that, but can we talk about it? And then just go to the professor's office hours. Office hours are very beneficial. I learned that this semester. So, yeah, I mean, transfer shock, it is something that can affect other students, but it just didn't affect me as much.
I had the same experience. It didn't affect me too much, and I think it has more to do with my diverse background. Like, it wasn't intimidating, but I can see how it could be. Like, definitely, the campus is huge, and you do get lost, and it can be intimidating. But I think that my professional background, it just made it a lot easier to transition into. I just kind of took it like, okay, this is like my other job.
I think initially for me, it goes back to the whole idea of not measuring yourself with another person's measuring tape. And once I stopped comparing myself to the people that were surrounding me, I did okay. It goes right back to making connections with your professors, and it's harder in an 80-person class than it is in a 15-person class, but that's what office hours are for, so bring your tent, pitch it, camp out. If you don't have questions, find some questions, make those connections, and it's all really making your experience what you want it to be and thinking about how to get those experiences critically. And so I looked for a while, I felt really sequestered in language disorders, and if you're not talking about dysphagia, I don't want to talk to you. But then I looked outside and I realized that there is a whole other world out there. I got involved with study abroad. Actually this semester I did a short-term teaching practicum in Cusco, Peru with Dr. Farina. I started pursuing my TEFL certificate, and it linked it back to communication and science disorders, but it wasn't exactly the same. So it gave me a different perspective than some of my peers. And so if you can get over the fact that, yes, there are a bunch of people around you and they're not 65 years old, they're the same age and you can't compare yourself, and just start piece by piece making a mosaic of your resume and your experiences, that's the biggest thing that helped me.
Well, for me, transfer shock is very real. I don't think in the aspect of, I know the bigger class. I think it's just professors are much more harder, at UCF than Valencia is, because they do have more students. For me, sorry, I just went blank. I'm sorry, I totally just went blank. What was the question? Transfer shock, yes, I'm sorry, transfer shock, yeah, okay. It is real because there is more workload. I'm taking 6 classes next semester, so I don't know how that's gonna work. But last semester for me was a little bit, because at orientation they did stress transfer shock so much. They kind of instilled a fear in me, like, oh, I'm going to start failing and losing motivation. But I didn't get to that aspect. I just saw that it is tougher, it is more difficult than I anticipated. But it just made me work harder. And being more involved this semester, I kind of still feel like I am in transfer shock because it is my second semester. So trying to balance everything out, I think that's what transfer shock is, and trying to find my way.
I didn't really experience too much as transfer shock, and one of the reasons is because I said coming through with a group of other people, other students that were kind of doing the same thing that I was doing. We kind of supported each other, so that support network was there. But the one thing I would say was it was my first online class in all of my education years, and that was quite a bit of a difference. And you kind of you have to go back to all of your self-motivational techniques when you're actually in an online class. So watch out for online classes.
All right, at this time I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience. So if anybody has any questions for our student panel.
Hello, my question is for you. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Me? Yes. Oh, Jovel.
Jovel?
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for sharing, being intimate with us. I have a question in regards to transfer shock. You mentioned that the teaching and learning environment was different. Can you give us an example of how the instruction from the professor was very different from here at Valencia?
Okay.
Any of your classes?
Mm-hmm. Well, this semester I did take my first 100 class. I think it's just about the motivation. In that aspect, you kind of just walk into class and he's talking and all the other students are just kind of spaced out, and so in that aspect it is motivation. But with the teaching, I think at Valencia they were more involved just because it's so intimate. They talk to you and they'll stop their lecture if you have a question. At UCF they're just very direct, they're just straight to the point. This is what you need to remember, this is what you need to learn. It's just, it's just about the whole class size, and yeah.
Class size allows more intimacy here at Valencia versus UCF with so many students.
Mhm.
You can't get that same one as you do.
And I mean, for me, I need that just because if I don't understand something, I have to ask questions constantly. I am known as the girl that asks questions in class constantly. Yeah, I make the class stay longer than we need to, but yeah, it is just the whole not being able to ask questions, not being able to talk and have discussions, because it is basically just lectures at UCF, which I mean, it works for people, but people like me that need that question thing, it is a little difficult.
Debbie Bowe, College of Central Florida, and we're the new person on the block with Direct Connect, and one of you made mention that you saw Direct Connect, you saw the branding, you saw advertisements, but you didn't know and understand what Direct Connect was or is. So as the new college joining Direct Connect, when and how would you wish you would have heard about all the great opportunities?
I think I wish it would have said apply to Direct Connect or something like that so that I would know. I just assumed that I was part of it because I knew I was going to go to UCF, and so I was like, oh, I'm direct connecting to it. I didn't realize that I had to apply that. And I think someone later said it's just a checkbox. I was like, oh, well, so it was easy to miss. It wasn't exactly it wasn't known, or at least for me, it wasn't well known.
And then the one person that made mention that you were aware of it in high school, from your high school counselors?
Yes, my high school speech language pathology. Yes, my guidance counselor did make me aware of it. I went through this whole, I initially wanted to do classical voice performance. And so when I was panicking and trying to audition, my guidance counselor said, breathe, have you heard about Direct Connect? And that's how I ended up here. But it was definitely through my guidance counselor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Can you think of things that we could do at the state colleges to help with transfer shock before you leave us? What kind of ideas, looking back, would have been helpful?
As I mentioned before, TTS. Tell them about transfer and transition services, because it is an office dedicated for transfer students. They tell you all the courses that you would need to take for your major. They have peer mentors there that will help the students one-on-one, so they could come on in and just come on and visit. And then they also have lovely organizations through TTS as well. Not only Unite, they have the Honor Society, Tau Sigma, they have Transfer Nights, which is a lovely organization transfer students should get involved with. TTS is literally just a stepping stone. You literally get your feet wet there, and then they push you out into UCF and be like, okay, now explore the rest of there. Through through the wonderful faculty and staff that they have, including Jason.
Just to add on that, I actually didn't know about TTS until this semester, and I think if your state college just kind of stresses on it, because I've never heard of it. I only received flyers my first semester, but never took it seriously. And I am involved in Tau Sigma and hopefully Transfer Nights. I'm trying to be vice president too. But I think that is one of the greatest things as far as I can say, just to get them out there as well.
One point, if I may. The biggest thing that helped me is there were faculty on my campus that had taught at UCF. And so when I was concerned about if would I be able to cut it at UCF, going in and talking to that faculty and making those connections really helped. And I think that if there were some type of forum at the state college level, either through an honor society or a different organization where not even necessarily faculty, but a representative of TTS could come in and talk you through that, it lowers that level of anxiety and inhibition.
I would just add to that question, to those answers, that if the state college actually had a program where they actually, say, once a quarter or once a semester, brought those folks who were thinking and brought them into a grouping, a meeting, and just said, okay, here's some things you need to be thinking about, and make sure you're signed up for Direct Connect, I think that would actually help quite a bit. Just at the state college level, having a meeting, reaching out, putting up some banners and posters saying, okay, hey, we're going to have a meeting about this, so all you who want to transfer directly into UCF, you need to come to this meeting. I think that would help out.
A couple of you already touched on this already, but those of you who didn't, how much did you know in high school about Direct Connect, and what would you have liked to have known before making that decision now?
I didn't know anything about Direct Connect in high school because I'm not from the Orlando area. I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. So they never touched upon that at my high school. So I didn't know about it. One of my friends talked about it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And so I took the initiative and I applied for Valencia because I wanted to get away from my parents, but still be cost efficient. So, but my high school didn't talk about Direct Connect. So, if they really want to, because there's a lot of kids from my high school who actually go to Valencia now, and who are actually from the Orlando area, but I don't know if they are involved in Direct Connect. So, maybe we should expand it from the Orlando area and have down south high schools know about it too, or up northern Florida as well know about it. Because my high school, I don't know, maybe they do know about it now, but when I was in high school, no, we didn't know about it.
Just to add on what she said earlier, I didn't know you had to apply for Direct Connect. I thought it was you were at Valencia, or wherever you are, and automatically get in. So I think just what she said, I don't know what she said, just have somewhere on the banner where it says apply. Make sure you apply.
And real quickly to add on to that point, in high school, a big detail that gets neglected is cost of college, and especially for people that are, because student loan debt is such a huge issue in the national forefront that we're discussing. If we start having those conversations in high school, because I found out about Direct Connect on an individual basis, but if high schools were to start talking about the cost efficiency of college, I think that would be a great opportunity to then discuss Direct Connect, because it makes college so much more accessible to so many more people. And that's such an important point that I think often gets overlooked at that level.
As a direct coordinator for the East Campus, we're always looking to enhance our customer service. What do you think would have made the difference from your transition from the community college into the University of Central Florida?
For me, it was definitely finding the resources. Yes, there's transfer and transition services, and there are other resources out there, but just even calling different departments. If I call Sumter and I need to get 2 things accomplished, I make 2 phone calls and I'm good to go. I am at UCF and I need to accomplish 2 things, 10 phone calls later, and I still have about 15 on my list. So getting if there was any information out there that would give you the tools to kind of help you navigate the back channels of making sure things are submitted and exactly where they need to be, there's definitely a consolidation at the state college level that isn't available at the university level, and that's understandable because UCF is gigantic in a good way, but there are just a lot of departments that you have to go through to get where you need to go.
I guess would be to stress that when you're applying to UCF that you are accepted into your major but not into your college. Because a lot of people, from what I've heard, is that when they apply to UCF, they don't know that they aren't accepted into their college yet, that they're pending. So that's something I believe Direct Connect should express a lot, and just like, a lot, and just let them know that, yeah, you are applying, but just know when you get there, you're not going to be in your college.
All right, we'll take a couple more. Right here.
As a financial aid administrator, I was really excited to hear you finally mention something about finances. I'm interested to know if you received any counseling about transferring your financial aid your financial aid, and if any of you would care to share about how smooth that transition went for you, moving your financial aid from the state college to the university level.
Well, as I stated earlier, I was a financial learning ambassador, so I was in the financial aid office a lot, and they did help me explain to me. They were always like, "Get your FAFSA done, get it done now, go get it done." I was like, okay, it's done. So they did explain to me about the loans, about unsubsidized and subsidized loan. And basically that I wasn't going to get Pell Grant at all whatsoever. Not going to see that ever. But they did tell me, go look out to scholarships and stuff, and to look at UCF scholarships, other scholarship websites and stuff, just so that I know. And they did tell me that my tuition is going to be higher at UCF in class. There's going to be a major difference, that it's going to be more expensive, so be prepared for that. So I guess that if anything, students would just have to look out and reach out to a financial aid specialist if they really want to know the cost difference, or if you are talking to a student who you see is about to transfer over and about to graduate, just let them know that it is going to be more expensive, and that, yeah, it's going to be more expensive. Book prices are a completely different price over here at UCF than compared to at a community college or state college, so yeah.
Okay, so for me, my transfer with my financial aid, it went pretty smoothly. I was in the Bridges program at Valencia, so we did get that refund back, and Direct Connect advisors did tell us about certain scholarships as well, like the Direct Connect scholarship, and where to apply. So basically right now I'm not paying anything for school. Valencia basically paid for me, and I hear you. So I'm very lucky. I think if other students, get that opportunity for them to know about more financial aid and opportunities they have, it could go as smoothly as mine did.
Real quick, we've got just a few more minutes left. We have two questions, one here, and then I'm sure the audience would probably like for you to stick around if they have any further questions. Okay? So right back here.
Hi, I'm Claire Brady from Lake Sumter. The first thing I want to say is thank you for noticing the magical power of academic advisors. They're awesome. The question I have for you is, would you have benefited in what ways from maybe hearing other Direct Connect student stories when you were at your state college?
I absolutely would have. My roommate now is also a transfer student from Lake Sumter, and so we were kind of going at this process together, and the Direct Connect advisors get you to a certain point, and then there is a jumping off point where you need to find housing and you need to navigate the nuances and make sure that you are accepted into your college, which my roommate discovered. Rude awakening. And there are a lot of nuances that you don't always catch with a Direct Connect advisor, and that isn't because they're not doing their job. They're doing a great job, but it doesn't fall in their job description. And for somebody to have shared their experiences through Direct Connect, that would have been really helpful, especially that goes back to making sure you're applied to your college and realizing that there are scholarships through your specific college, not just the institution. And that was a new discovery to me this semester, and it's been nice to know the different resources like those.
I think that would be really helpful, just because I would love to share my story and give inspiration to other students about how you don't have to be in debt to go to school. You just have to work really hard. I think a lot of students in general kind of don't want to do Direct Connect because they want to get away from home, they want to move somewhere far, and it's expensive. And I feel like if we do share our stories, it'll serve just as that inspiration, where you get the same college experience, but on a budget.
All right, one more quick question.
Yes, hi. Mary from the College of Health and Public Affairs at UCF and the co-chair of the FOE Orientation Action Team, and I couldn't leave this place without asking this question. What were your expectations when you came to orientation to UCF? And before you answer that, is it Javon? Six classes in the summer or in the fall? Because you're worrying me. And undergraduate student services for College of Health and Public Affairs can assist you looking at that.
It's Jovel. Yeah, but
summer or fall?
Fall.
Okay,
5
and
classes in the summer.
that's still giving me a heart attack. But anyhow, okay, we can talk later.
Yeah.
And if you came to our orientation, I'm probably the one who put the fear in you, so I'm so sorry.
You're good. So wait, what was your question?
So if somebody could just
my expectations of orientation was to actually enroll in more than 2 classes, but when I first transferred to UCF, I was only able to enroll in 2 classes, and also during my orientation, I had a hold on my account because they thought I wasn't there, but I was there. And I had a name tag on, so there was a hold, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, there's a hold on your account. I'm like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh, but I'm here. I even got an email saying I wasn't there. I was like, oh, but I'm here. I have a name tag. But yeah, I guess it was to be expected to be enrolled as a full-time student and actually have my full 4 classes, and being enrolled in 2 classes was really a setback because I'm like, oh no, I only got 2 classes in this semester, so I felt like I was being pushed back for my to graduate. So I was like, oh, now I have to play catch up and I have to take more classes, and now I have to try to graduate on time, and was stressing out about it. I'm like, oh no. But I guess after that, and now this semester I am enrolled in 4 classes and going and talking to an academic advisor for the health, public, and services, because I'm a health science major. So going to my college and talking to an advisor and actually being able to pick out my classes for the spring and stuff like that actually put me more at ease, and I was able to breathe more and stuff like that. And now I'm just going out and getting more involved, going to the undergraduate research office so I could get involved in that so I could prepare myself for PT school, grad school stuff. But yeah, that was just not being able to register in my classes, and more than 2 classes that's what was a heavy hitter there.
All right, so I'm going to break in. Thank you very much for serving on the student panel. If anybody had any questions, can you stick around for just a few more minutes to answer any of those questions? All right, perfect. Before we give a round of applause for our students, I would like to say that I very much appreciated them being here. They jumped to the chance to serve on the student panel. And I would like to present them with certificates of appreciation as well as gift cards to the UCF bookstore, which I just found out can also be used to Barnes & Noble. So live it up, guys, right? So thank you very much. Round of applause for our student panel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right, another round of applause for Eric, what computer do I use? This one? Y'all can go.
You fellow beast.
All right, so we're going to do kind of a different activity. You'll notice on your table there's a handout that's titled Polling What Matters. So part of our FOE process was obviously very data-driven and very data-heavy. So one of the things that we thought would be interesting would actually be to dive into the data and get your feedback on how you think the students and staff responded to questions on our FOE survey. So there's two ways that you can access what we call Socrative. The first is on your mobile device, or the second is using a browser from a laptop or a tablet. So while you are getting that either downloaded or brought up on your browser, I'm going to sign in and get us started. All right, so if you're on your browser or if you're on your mobile device and you sign in to Socrative, the room that you want to enter, again, it's listed on the sheet on your table, but the room that you want to enter is CY95KKLS. CY95KKLS. And when you sign in, you're going to be asked to provide a name. You'll notice that we have 32 that have signed in so far. 3 have already answered the question. So the question right now is involved surrounding curriculum alignment. What percentage of faculty indicated on the FOE faculty staff survey that they do not interact at all with counterparts at institutions from which UCF commonly receives transfer students? All right, our numbers are ticking up here. All right, so let's take a look at where we're at and how we're doing here. So we have 99 folks that have joined Socrative. We have 91 that have answered the polling question. So let's go ahead and see how we did. Correct answer is 51% of faculty and staff said that they do not interact at all with counterparts at institutions from which UCF commonly receive transfer students. So about a little over half of our room got this one right. It was interesting to note that from the faculty staff survey, and as Joyce had mentioned earlier on, the fact that the faculty, they might not want to know who their transfer students are in their classroom. They might not want to make that particular distinction. So it was very interesting to get that feedback from the faculty. It was also interesting to see, again, how many do not relate at all with our counterparts at our sending institutions. So one of the tenets of Foundations of Excellence in one of our 7 themes is curriculum alignment and how we can get those faculty involved and how we can get them engaged in that conversation for curriculum alignment. Anybody have any comments or observations about this piece of data? All right. Yes. Faculty? Well, it's actually interesting because we had a Foundations of Excellence, we had a focus group session that we presented to the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, and the faculty did not want, it was interesting because they anecdotally told us that they didn't feel that transfer students were as prepared as our native students, but they did not want to make that distinction just because of terms of prejudice. So they didn't want to focus on knowing who the transfer students were and treating them any differently in their classrooms. At least that's the feedback that we got verbally from the faculty that were involved in that kind of focus group session of Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. What percentage of transfer students indicated on the faculty staff, or excuse me, on the FOE student survey that to a very high degree their transfer orientation provided them with the information that they needed? So what percentage of students indicated to a very high degree their transfer orientation provided them with the information that they needed? All right, let's look how we do here. The answer is 37%. 30% of our students said to a very high degree that their transfer orientation provided them with the information that they needed. We also, from this particular survey, we had 33% of students respond that to a high degree, the orientation gave them what they needed, and only 3.2% not at all, 6.6% slightly, and 20.6% to a moderate degree that orientation gave them what they needed. Any comments on this particular piece? Yes, Chris?
Did you ask them what it was they felt was missing for those who felt something was missing?
Great question, and that should have been on the FOE survey, but it wasn't. So the FOE survey is prescriptive to the John Gardner Institute. So they actually broke down this question after the first one was issued. Did it give you what you needed? It then went in through a few different points in terms of, did it give you what you needed about your major? Did did orientation give you what you needed about your college? Did it give you what you needed about the institution in general? But those were very much more nuanced questions. So in terms of time and brevity for this particular event, we just took this higher level question. But a good number of students, 37%, said that the orientation to a very high degree gave them the information that they felt was necessary to be successful. All right, another one of our 7 themes coming out of our first year of FOE and what we're going to be focused on for our second year is engagement. So one of the questions on the survey was, what percentage of transfer students indicated on the student survey that they were rarely involved or not at all involved in campus-sponsored out-of-class activities? So what percentage of students, in terms of engagement, indicated that they were rarely or not at all involved in campus-sponsored activities? When we break 100, we will reveal the results. Come on, 4 more. Here we are. All right. How do we do? 68% of students indicated that they are rarely or not at all involved in any out-of-class activities. And that no involvement was 36.5, had absolutely no involvement in out-of-class activities. So 36% had no involvement, and 31.1% were rarely involved. And our population for this particular this question, our N, was 8,189 students. So we had about what we did. We had 3,141 students that were not at all involved in any of our out-of-class sponsored activities. Any comments on this one? Was this surprising to anybody? Yes, and I can actually get you that information because the FOE survey, even though our particular focus for Foundations of Excellence is transfer, this survey actually allowed us to survey both our FTIC population and our transfer population. So we can actually get you that data and make that comparison to see how many of our FTIC students were involved. So another big theme that we found coming out of this first year was communication, that we have a lot of different units on campus, we have a lot of different activities on campus. We're working with our Direct Connect partners to transfer students into the University of Central Florida, so there's a lot of communication points that we have in terms of this entire transfer process. So the question on the table now in terms of communication, what percentage of transfer students indicated that to a very high degree it was easy to find information related to transfer students on our website, on UCF's website? And this particular question, it was asked in multiple ways, in the catalog, from your major, those types of things. But for our purposes, we just, for this question, just looked at websites. All right, let's see how we did here. 29%. 29% of transfer students indicated to a very high degree that it was easy to find information related to transfer students on our website specifically. 25.9% of students actually indicated to a moderate degree that the website was helpful to them, the UCF website was helpful to them in terms of finding information. And then we had about 2.6 saying that the information on the website was not helpful at all. So communication is, like I said, a big part of what we're doing moving into year 2 of FOE, and looking at how we can streamline those communication efforts and coordinate that communication effort. Transfer credit evaluation. What percentage of transfer students rated either to a very high or high degree that their courses from their previous institution trained as expected? So very high or high degree that their courses from their previous institution transferred as expected. So this went 72% of transfer students responded that either to a very high or high degree that the courses transfer. Yep. All transfers. Then just correct. That's correct. So it wasn't just direct connect transfers, it was all transfers. So in terms of this particular question, to a very high degree, we had 44% of our respondents, which equated to 3,800 198 students indicated that the courses transferred as they expected. It was also interesting to note that we had satisfaction for in terms of how the transfer credit evaluation process went. One of the things that we found on the faculty staff survey and what we learned internally is that while some students satisfied with that, it's a very cumbersome process for that transfer credit evaluation to process through, which is why we're so upstream of transfer credit and transfer credit evaluation. Academic success. What percentage of the faculty indicated that they understood trends and issues related to transfer students either slightly or not at all? Faculty. All right, let's see how we did here. So 39% of our faculty indicated, now this is faculty, not staff and professional staff, indicated that they understand the trends and issues related to transfer students either slightly or not at all. And it comes back to that argument of, do faculty even want to make that distinction about transfer students? But it's interesting to note that our administrators who took this particular survey, so we have faculty who are indicating 39% either slightly or not at all that they understand the issues and trends related to transfer students. We had 20.4% of our administrators indicating that they do know about the issues and trends related to transfer students, and we had about 13% issues slightly or not at all. So we had a very high degree, or high degree, so 43.3% had a high degree of understanding with regards to our transfer students' issues and trends. So it seems like administrators had a little bit higher satisfaction in terms of understanding the issues and trends related to transfer students. Any questions on this particular point? All right. So our final theme, again, we have our 7 themes. Our final theme is related to the philosophy statement. As Jeff mentioned in his opening session, a lot of our faculty and administrators indicated that we don't currently function from a philosophy statement at UCF. So the question on the table is, what percentage of faculty indicated that it would be very valuable to have a formalized institution-wide transfer philosophy that articulates what the institution believes to be the primary purpose for how and why we work with transfer students? So we had close to 70% of all respondents on this survey saying that we don't currently have a philosophy statement and we don't operate from some type of a philosophy standpoint. So we want to know how many faculty indicated it would be very valuable to have that philosophy statement. All right, let's reveal the answer. 68%. 68% of our faculty indicated that it would be very valuable to have a philosophy statement or a formalized philosophy statement with regard to how and why we work with transfer students. So an interesting point to note here is that of our administrators, 58% said that it would be very valuable to have a formalized philosophy statement. So our administrators seem to know more about the issues and trends with regard to transfer students but less of them think that a formalized philosophy statement would be very beneficial. Where our faculty have less understanding, but they're indicating that they think that a formalized philosophy statement would be very beneficial to how and why we work with transfer students at UCF. Any questions at all about any of this data? So the purpose of this exercise, first of all, I hope it was somewhat informative. The purpose of this exercise is to get us ready in terms of thinking about what we're going to do with our next activity. So we're going to break for lunch, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start talking about these particular 7 themes. As we mentioned, moving into year 2 for Foundations of Excellence, we have designed our 7 different themes or areas that have been highlighted as important for transfer student success. But we want to hear from you all in terms of how we can institute those themes and what we need to do from a partner aspect to make sure that the success of our transfer students is always at the forefront of what we're doing. So we're going to, like I said, break for lunch, and then I'm going to put up a slide in terms of your table assignments. So each one of our tables will have one of the 7 themes assigned to them, and then we're going to ask you a series of questions so that we can talk amongst yourselves at the table in terms of what we need to do, how we're doing it, what we need to do better, and how can we partner in that effort for the success of our transfer students. So before we break, Deborah, anything I need to say, or turn it over to you?
Sure. I'm going to tell you, hopefully, how we're going to do lunch so that we can make this as easy as possible. Is this working? Perfect. Perfect. You all put in your orders, so each person has a bag with their name on it and what they ordered in the bag. They are in alpha order. A through L is on that side. M through Z is on this side. The drinks have not arrived yet. They're almost here and should be here shortly, but the lunches are all in place. Now, if you had a gluten-free or vegetarian, or you are one of our late arrivals, your lunch is going to be on the back table over there. Now, we are not going to, everybody just get up and run over there. So I would like tables 1 through 7 to get up and go find your lunch and bring it back to your table. You'll have to get your drinks a little later because they're on their way.
College of Undergraduate Studies. In that role, she leads the new Teaching and Learning Division within Academic Affairs, which serves as the incubator for new ideas and innovations in teaching and learning. Additionally, she oversees the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, Interdisciplinary Studies, and leads the College of Undergraduate Studies as the Dean, overseeing areas including undergraduate research, experiential learning, academic advisement programs, advancement programs, Excel, pre-health and pre-law advising, quality enhancement programs, academic and academic services. She works closely with UCF's involvement in academic consortia and alliances, including the University Innovation Alliance, the Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities, and UCF Downtown. Previous to her current position at UCF, Dr. Dooley was at West Virginia University, where she served as the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Academic Affairs. Please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Dooley.
Good afternoon. How's everybody? So guess what? I'm just going to have a conversation with you all. Is that okay? So let's have a conversation. But let me say this before I get started. As Jeff mentioned, I did come here from West Virginia, but I can tell you, when I was here for my interview, the UCF community wanted to know if I had any experience working with students who were transitioning from four-year state colleges into UCF. That was a given. It was also given that they wanted someone who had high energy, someone who was not stuck in the past, and someone who was willing to move at the same rate of speed that they were moving. And so when I got the offer, it was pretty incredible and it was pretty amazing. Because one of the things that I realized is that it takes a community and it takes everyone to be involved when you want to move big projects forward. And so today was an interesting day for me. We had Founders Day. I had a meeting scheduled for 12:30. And the way my schedule was, they scheduled me to leave that meeting at 1:30 today, to be here at 2 o'clock. And I said to myself, there is no way I'm going to leave UCF to get here at 2 o'clock and walk in and say 15 minutes of words to you all. There was absolutely no way that I could do that without first coming here to feel the energy and the synergy that is in this room. I needed to witness this because this is who we are. And I intentionally say we, because we are a collective group moving in one direction and bringing all of our students along with it. Is that correct? Yes. Is that correct? Yes. So here we go. One of the first things that was introduced to me was the foundation of excellence. And as I looked at that and as I looked at the goals, one of the elements that was crystal clear was the intentionality of all of the things that are coming out of that. And when I say intentionality, that's done with purpose, that's done with intention, and that's done with heart. So in looking at all of the things that everyone had to do, if we double down on that, looking at all the teams that had to come together and meet and group and be on one accord, an incredible opportunity to witness collectivity in action. And what is that collective force, folks? Our partners, our students, and everything that we do, collective force. The second thing I witnessed was the signing of Direct Connect, which they call 2.0. So I didn't live through the 1.0 era. So what I had to do was to get a glimpse of what everyone was saying and try to feel the passion around the accomplishment, right? So I sat in President Hint's conference room and all of the presidents were there. And they passed this white paper around. Now this is a defining moment. They passed a paper around where everyone took his or, was there any hers in the room? Okay, thank you. His or her pen or shared a pen to write their signature. A seal of approval, a seal of agreement. Agreement suggesting that our students will be successful and we're going to be committed to their success. A defining moment. But then there was another moment that came after that.
And this was the 10-year celebration, where there are testimonials of success, real people touching each other, parents. One of the parents came in a wheelchair because he was in an accident. But what you witnessed real people, human, just like you or I, wanting to pursue and to achieve their dreams, and looking to us to help them do that. And so I witnessed those three things very early in my pathway in my career at UCF. So I think I was asked to talk about, well, what's next? What's the future? So in my problem solving and in my thinking, I look and see what's around me, and I'm looking at the PowerPoint on the screen. And it says transfer, 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 transfer. And I don't see student orientation, student engagement, student aligning curriculum for students. And so those words mean something very different to different populations. And so when I'm meeting with faculty and deans and they say transfer, it doesn't sound as if it's ours. And the folks in the room know and believe that, but it's always said as if there's a distinction, that there's a difference. We got to get beyond that if we're going to look to the future and if this is 2.0. But we can't be the choir, what's that saying? We got to move down into the organizations. And so as we move forward with these things in terms of engagement, we have to start talking to our folks. At our table, we were talking about faculty sharing the load and teaching at our 4 years and also teaching at UCF so that they understand who the students are. You can't come to me in disguise and I recognize what your needs are. I have to know and feel your experience. So I think we have to put these experiences in front of the people who will be interacting with students. The other thing in terms of what's next as we move ahead, we're looking a lot to predictive analytics. And in looking at predictive analytics, we have to be careful about the predictions. And one of the things that I said at a meeting last week is that those predictions mean absolutely nothing without actions. And because there's a prediction, we have to change history. We can't allow history to repeat itself. We want those predictive analytics to inform us of what's best in terms of intervention, services, support services that our students need. So we turn it into their favor and making sure that they have the right resources. We are also talking about students having a map, a GPS, to better understand what our students need. If we have predictive analytics, then we can predict the right sequence of courses for our students. We can see which students are having difficulty in what courses, and maybe it's not the student, maybe it's the instruction. We had a conversation here at the table. I was listening and she was indicating if she sees something, she also has to write it down to be able to comprehend it or to learn it. But allow those things, if we know those things, that needs to be integrated into that mapping and tracking plan. But in addition to that, we're looking at a system that would recalibrate. If there's a misstep, then it needs to recalibrate based upon where you're headed and based upon which direction you want to go in. So I believe we're looking to the future to become one. I believe we're looking to the future where we can continue to use the word transfer, but we're really talking about a transition. It's a movement. But for that transition to be seamless, we have to accomplish many of those things. The curriculum alignment. And again, it may not be the student's issue. It may be the instruction. It may be the sequence of courses. And once we learn all of those things, put the actions in place to help our students be successful. Because after all, it really is about them. And one of the things that I've always said, even working with in West Virginia and working with many students is that I have to move myself out of the way and allow the dominant person to be our student. And that's what I think our purpose is here today. And I'm excited about Foundations of Excellence. I'm excited about the continuation of partnerships. And I'm excited about the diversity and the collective efforts that are ongoing in this room. In the future, to be determined, right? Through collective action, to be determined. Thank you.
Okay, stage direction here. We thank you, Dr. Dooley. Appreciate that. Very inspiring. And I know you weren't able to be with us this morning because of everything else you were doing. We appreciate you coming this afternoon. But your remarks really coincided with things we talked about this morning. So in complete alignment, and that's so wonderful to have your leadership and your passion with us on this subject. So I get the opportunity to introduce my friend. That'll be nice. I've known Jim Henningsen a really, really long time. So when he was a kid, before he had gray hair, before I had gray hair. Right. Right. So we are so pleased. Jim, this morning, something else that you missed was Jeff actually read the principles that we started with in terms of what we wanted students to experience. And Jim was one of the co-authors of that document. So that year when we started in 2006, Jim was Vice President of Student Affairs at Seminole State, and I was at Valencia. Maribeth Ihas, who's still at UCF, was part of that team. Jane Miller was the Lake Sumter Vice President, and Brenda Fetro was the college formerly known as Brevard Vice President. I'm sorry if I just covered your history. Right. So anyway, we were there, and it's so great that Jim has stayed committed, and obviously his career has advanced, and now is president of Central Florida State College. Do I have that right? College of Central Florida. I'm so sorry. So I'm so pleased to introduce my friend, Dr. Jim Henningsen.
Forget it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I can't stand behind a podium. Those that know me, and I know some of you are out there, I'm just going to run around and get y'all in trouble. Now, I have to warn you before I start, somebody spiked my coffee today. Before I got here, it was supposed to be decaf. It was a full high test. So I'm all amped up, as this table can attribute earlier. Once I get caffeine in my body, even just one cup, it's like liquid nitro. But I was born caffeinated, so that always makes a problem. Anyhow, I'm going to continue, and you all just have to bear with me. But thanks for having me here. It's an honor to be here. I guess I'm the retro guy to talk about 1.0 version, the original, the young cola, no, the original cola. But going back to 2005, the work that all of you have done, and some of you in this room were there at that time. It's some great work, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. You're on a campus. I don't know if many of you know this. Part of my talk is about passion and persistence. And what fueled my passion to be where I am today and doing what we're all doing, I think is pretty similar. I started 27 years ago now. 1989, I was hired by Valencia to be here, their new research in their research area. And it was a great journey. It was actually in Building 5 over here, my 94 square foot office. Why do I know it's 94? Because when you have 94 square feet, you pretty much need to use every square foot. But the office is still there. I love it. It was a great time over in Building 5, and a great time for me to learn about the community college system. I came from Vermont, wasn't aware of it. So that was eye-awakening. I was not hooked on the mission at that time. I started with UCF in 1992, same year Dr. Hitt started, because I'll never forget, it's always easy for me to remember his first year there. It was my first year working my master's in business. And I wasn't hooked on it. I actually left Valencia to go to be in law school. I'm proud to say if there's any attorneys in the room, there's probably at least one. I did go to law school for 1 week. 1 week. It took me 2 years to get in, but I got there. Check off the bucket list. I said, why do I need to complete if I got the check? So got that done in a week. No, just I realized something was missing there. I knew Valencia, it didn't connect for me yet, what we did here and what we do at all of our institutions, even in the K-12 system, helping our students. It was all up here. You got to do something up here and do it for the right reason, but what was important is to find something in here, and that's what I learned in that first week. It's hard to explain unless you were there, but it did happen, and that's where it connected. I wanted to do something where I can use my brain, but also use my heart, and helping other students get access to a quality education was what it was all about to me. I was going to law school for the wrong reasons. Get the big car, the box seats of the Magic Games, sell a lot of grapefruit around the world. I don't know. But international law was where I was going to go, but it didn't connect. I could do it, but I didn't want to do it. And so I came back. I was so nice to Valencia, I helped them fill my job, so it wasn't available when I got back here. That's just the way I am. But the passion part of it kicked. I knew I needed to be back in the community college system and I don't care what the job was, I knew it was the path I wanted to be on. And the greatest weight lifted off of me. It's just like, woo, I had my moment on the mountain floating around. It's a great feeling when it clicks for you and what your passion is. So I knew good things would happen if you follow your heart, even if you don't think they are at a specific point in time. So I'm very fortunate to be where I am today, just out of hard work, great people to work with, and just following your passion. Anything can happen. You're looking at a guy who in 6th grade was told he's not good enough to go to college. I told my mom, they didn't tell me. I wouldn't say, what, college, what's that? Where's the sandbox? But I hit it there, and then in high school they said the same thing. We don't think you're going to be successful in college. And they told me point blank, and I'm like, wow. That was a tough thing. It was really a demotivator. I made it into the university. We didn't have a 2-year college system fully developed like it is now back in Vermont, where I'm from. And so we were able to, I was able to get in the university because my grandfather was there, my dad was there, my brothers were there. I got one of those things in UVM, University of Vermont. Groovy UV, anybody? No. Okay, I should get one. That would be me. But I got into the university and was not an overachiever. I wasn't motivated yet and trying to figure out what to do. But I was lucky to get in there. A lot of students don't get that pushing, and I had older brothers who were already in college that pushed me and my mother and father to get him into college. So we have a lot of first-gen students we deal with that don't get access. They may be told they're not good enough to go to college because their parents or support systems may say, well, I don't know what college is about. Don't do that. Come stay with us over here. It's a great opportunity that can be missed. Because I always tell folks, if I can do this and get through and get a master's degree or a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate, anybody can. Joyce can attest to that. She's not available for comments afterwards or anything like that. But that's where the passion comes in. And so when we started Direct Connect, when I was at Seminole State, Dr. Hitt had a great vision. And I wasn't in those meetings at that time. I was the VP of Student Affairs. With the presidents were all dealing with that, and they came out with a vision how to help our local students get access to a high-quality education. We had a great, and we still do, a great college system, the Florida college system. Formerly the community college system, but community is always in our hearts. That's what we're about, open door, open access. And we had a university that was willing to prioritize our local students and to give them access to higher education and make it happen. At the time, we were like, wow, we're going to guarantee admission for transfer students going in. I said, that's fantastic. And there was we didn't really know how successful it would be, but to be here 10, 11 years now past that, and you look around the size of this room, it has done tremendous success. It's been fantastic. But early on in 1.0, when we were engaging all that, there was a lot of meetings. And in the next, since we skipped a break and I have extra time now, I'm going to go through the 600-page minutes of all those meetings to recap some of the fun that you may have missed. No, we won't do that. But there was a lot of great work in trying to partner together. And some of those conversations, I'll be honest, were uncomfortable for the participants. But we've evolved. Education has to evolve. And we evolved to be able to deliver a pathway that nobody else at the time, I think, did this in the entire country. This was something completely unique and different, and it really is. It's special. Everybody's trying to copy it. There's some that just haven't copied. They're trying to copy and they can't do it. And it does take a lot of work and a lot of people to go past their comfort zones to make it happen. But it did. And who's the real benefit of this? We're not saying transfer student. It's student. It's the student, Right. I love transfer. Whoever put transfer up there, it's okay. I mean, but it's true. It's about the students. They're the ones that really have access now to education. That they may have a SAT score or GPA. It's a little bit lower, maybe 30% lower than the native student coming in the University of Central Florida. But now they have a pathway where they know they're guaranteed to get in. And we know the results of students that once they do go this pathway, they're as successful as the university native students. What a great benefit is that. I can guarantee admission into a top quality research university right in my own backyard. That is fantastic benefit. So just seeing the looks on those faces of students, we dealt with admissions and recruiting. You know, is this going to sell? UCF's already here in town. We weren't sure how it was going to work out in 2005, but we were following a vision that Dr. Hitt put out there, and it worked. So I would say it's been a great partnership, and it will continue to do more. We're going to continue to evolve. I think in the next 30, 40, 50 years, you'll see education completely different than we're doing it today. I really don't see us having these large, expensive campuses with all these buildings. There's still a need for high touch with a lot of our students. We just got to figure out how do we do that in the modern world where everybody is walking around with an electronic device. That's what's changed. And pet peeve, I just got to put a little sidebar in here. Pet peeve number one, how many people are driving on the interstates with their cell phones like this? That's why I was a little late getting here this morning. 60 miles an hour in the outside lane on I-75 with their cell phone and driving, and there's trucks and you can't pass. And please put the cell phones down. It's so dangerous. You see them swerving, even truck drivers now. But I want to thank the whole team here in terms of what the power of what has happened over the last 10 years with Direct Connect. For us at the College of Central Florida, we've been Direct Connect Lite, I think, until recently when we signed that document. And now we're officially in, which we're excited about. Access is, we're in the hinterlands. You may be saying, where's the College of Central Florida? It's the place up in Ocala that keeps getting the University of Central Florida's phone calls. I didn't name the college. But yes, anytime the Google alerts, College of Central Florida. No, it's a college, one of the colleges at University of Central Florida. You know, the name, apologize to UCF for any of that, but it's what we have for a name. But we don't have access to a university in our backyard there. And being at 2 degrees from UCF, I went up into that area. I've been 25, 26 years, 25 years down here? A lot of years down here in this area, knowing UCF and Valencia and Seminole. Going up there, I said, I'm still in Central Florida. It's still home. It's a UF vibe up there because of the closeness, but UF is different than everybody else. They want to be that way. We didn't have the vision and the commitment that we had from Dr. Hitt and UCF and the team for allowing pathways to students who need a pathway. Our baccalaureate attainment level in our 3-county region, about 500,000 people. You may say that's just 500,000 people is not that much, but me, the Vermonter, that's almost the full population of the state of Vermont. And the square footage is bigger than the state of Vermont. We got a lot of horses. I know we got a lot of horses, so please do come visit. But our baccalaureate attainment level is only around 17%. It's almost half again what the state average is, which is lower than the national average. 17 out of 100 people have a bachelor's degree in that area. That's not very good. One of them's 12.5. One county's 12.5%. So we're trying, and I said, I know what the problem is. There's no university in our backyard. You can't commute. The small number of bachelor degrees that we do, you've got folks that are mid-30s, career-oriented families. They don't have the means or ability to pick up and uproot their families to come down to Orlando to a dorm or an apartment to go to school. So they just choose not to. And that's a challenge. And I'm excited about what I hear about UCF Online. When I was in a task force last year with the university presidents about online learning, that was the thing. I said, if you guys can find a way to deliver 100% student support online, so a student doesn't have to get in their car and drive an hour or 2 hours, it's 2.5 hours from one of our campuses to Orlando campus. That's a long ways with tolls and gas mileage. Time off from work, it's a whole day. If you can do that without them delivering it, we're going to be able to open access to even more students in our state. And that's only going to rise the tide for everybody. And that's what I'm excited about, is trying to, I figure that's my mission. That's why I've been called to go up to in Ocala. I love it up there. But this is what we have got to find a way to do, is get more access to education for these folks. So I'm excited about what we've accomplished in 10 years. I'm even more excited about what's coming down the pike in terms of opportunity and hope for students. that's what I get goosebumps just saying that, because it's about the students and about trying to give them, that's what fuels my passion. And I am persistent to make sure we get there. I was telling Sonia, where's Sonia hiding on me? I gotta get her in trouble. Yeah, she knows, oh, don't do it, Jim. She's saying, don't even say it, and I'll be nice. I love her to death. She's a great lady. But it's got to find a way to get help to these students and to get access and help. By doing that, every community is going to rise. So the passion of what you are all doing with this project, sometimes you may think, oh my God, another meeting or all this time. It's good work. All the feedback you put in your tablets to present back to them, for us to review as teams, I think is going to be good stuff for how do we continue to evolve this. So thank you for what you're doing. You make a difference. One of our phrases we say is we transform lives. You're not just buying a Starbucks where we say, hey, nice job, Jim, here's your drink, and move on. Now we're helping you to transform your life. If you come meet us halfway and engage in education, we're going to provide an engagement environment for you to learn. So it's an honor for us to be a partner with UCF in this endeavor, and we're really excited about that. And it's a great team that we've got here. It's a great K-20 pipeline. This starts early, even in K-12, getting folks college-bound. Even when I see them in 5th grade, we now give a scholarship out to every boy and a girl in every elementary school in 3 counties. It's a full ticket ride to CF. And the families, I can't tell you, you would think 5th grade is students like, what? What's this? College? I don't know what it is. But the parents, and they're just so thankful and so excited about getting a free ticket to get to education. And now we can even, you can biggie size that by going to UCF, guaranteed if you complete with us. So we're excited about that part too. One entrepreneurial student, I hope he comes with us. I want to get him in the business program. Dr. Henningsen, right after the ceremony of graduation, 5th grade, comes up. Is there a way, I've been really good as a student, could I get that now? I kid you not, this high is like, I appreciate that. That's very boldness. I like it. Make sure we got a job for him when he gets there. But thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work, and let's make it 3.0, Direct Connect 3.0, even better than it is today. And I'm grateful to be here, but that's all I got. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dooley, Dr. Henningsen, and we will, first of all, provide you with the executive summary of our FOE findings. The surveys and the work that you did at your tables were put into a Qualtrics survey, so we'll be able to dissect that or accumulate all of that stuff and get that back out to you as well. I once again thank you for your contributions today. I thank you for your attendance. I know that it's a long day and a busy day away from the office, but thank you all very much. And this concludes our 10th, say it with me, 10 years now of Direct Connect to UCF, and we'll see you all next year for number 11. Thank you very much.